Hi, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Enjoy listening. When I was 17, my family moved 2 states away without telling me. They left a note that said, "You'll figure it out." 12 years later, after I'd finally found success without them, they reached out, trying to rekindle the relationship. When I was 17, I came home to an empty house and a note on the kitchen table. It was the cruelest thing I'd ever read. It simply said, "You'll figure it out." I didn't know what I'd done wrong. I thought they were just tired of pretending to love me. But the truth was, they never even pretended. When I was 13, I baked my own cake for my mom's birthday and she called it a lump. At 15, I tutored my brother, helping him study for his finals. The whole time, he called me a know-it-all and slammed the door in my face. At 16, I gave my entire salary to my father so he could pay the bills, but I was scolded when I brought it up later, after he told me I was useless. I was always useful, but never loved. My parents and my brother, my only family, packed up and moved 2 states away without telling me. I found out from my landlord a week later. I had a week to move out because they broke our lease early. I stayed at a friend's house for 3 nights before I ran out of places to go. I ended up sleeping in the back of a storage unit I'd rented with my last savings. I'd sneak in and shower at the YMCA, eat peanut butter with a spoon for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I applied for jobs on the library's free computers and pretended everything was okay. I eventually got hired as a waitress at a diner on the graveyard shift. The manager was rude but fair. Paid me under the table cash until I could get an ID. She let me take a nap in the break room one day when I was about to pass out from exhaustion. I powered through it. I bought a prepaid phone, saved every receipt, watched free YouTube tutorials on finances and goal setting. I barely survived the first year, but I made it. The turning point came when a regular at the diner offered me a part-time job cleaning out office files. It paid 3 times what I was making as a waitress. I took it. That job led to another, and another. I learned quickly, showed up early, and asked questions. By 22, I was freelancing full-time. By 25, I had launched a consulting business, just me, a folding desk, and a borrowed laptop. By 27, I had 5 contractors, my own office, and a client list that included companies I'd only dreamed of owning. And by age 29, I was officially a millionaire, not an influencer millionaire, not a millionaire who pretends to have it all for Instagram, but a real millionaire with a retirement account saved, no debt, an apartment paid for, health insurance I could afford. The first time I saw 7 figures on my banking app, I cried. In all those tough years, my family never contacted me, not once. One day, I saw my brother as a suggested friend. He's married now, still living in the state they disappeared to. I stared at the screen for a long time, wondering if he'd ever told his wife about me, if he'd said I'd run away, or if he'd said nothing at all. Sometimes I still wonder if it would have been easier to hate them. But honestly, it was never hate. It was terrible grief. I now see a therapist because I want to stay unbroken. I've made a list of people who saved me when they didn't have to, like coworkers, classmates, and strangers who showed me what real support looks like. Last week, a podcast interview I did about surviving family estrangement went viral online. Within 4 days, 1 million people had watched it. My inbox was flooded with messages of support, gratitude, and messages from strangers telling me I'd put their pain into words. And then one email stood out. The subject line, "You're still our daughter." It was from my mom. No apology, just a paragraph about how she'd heard my side and that maybe we could talk. Then another message, this time from my brother. "We miss you. Can we fix this?" I stared at the screen for a long moment before closing my laptop. I sat with it, wondering if healing meant looking back or moving forward. I didn't respond right away. I needed time to process everything. My therapist, Melissa, suggested I take at least a week before making any decisions. "Give yourself space to feel whatever comes up," she said during our session. "Don't rush to respond." So I did. I focused on work, going to the gym, having dinner with friends, the usual. But those emails haunted me. I kept opening them, reading them, closing them again. My mom seemed cold, emotionless, almost like she was talking to a distant acquaintance. My brother's was shorter, but somehow felt more sincere. I couldn't stop thinking about them. After 10 days, I decided to write back to my brother first. Just something simple. I wrote, "It's been 12 years. What's changed?" Then I sent the message before I could even process it. His response came an hour later. He said the podcast made him realize what they'd done. He claimed he was only 15 when they dumped me, that he had no choice, that he had always been interested in me, that he had looked me up online several times over the years but had never gotten around to contacting me, that my success made him proud. I didn't believe him, not entirely. If he cared that much, why had he waited until I was publicly successful? I asked him exactly that. His next letter was longer. He admitted that they were struggling financially, that his parents' business had failed, that his wife was pregnant with their second child, that medical bills were piling up. I felt my stomach drop. That was the real reason. I didn't respond for another week. Then my mom sent a letter with old family photos attached, pictures of me as a baby, pictures of us at the beach when I was 5 or 6, pictures of me and Michael building a snowman, happy moments that felt like they belonged to someone else. At the bottom of the letter, she wrote, "We made mistakes. We want to fix them." I showed the letters to Melissa during our next session. She reminded me that I was in control, that I could set boundaries, that I didn't owe anyone anything, but she also said that closure could help me move forward, whether that meant reconciliation or a final goodbye. I nodded, but inside I felt confused. Part of me wanted to tell them to go to hell. Another part of me wanted to understand why they'd left me, and a tiny, stupid part of me still wanted them to love me. I decided to meet my brother first, just him, without my parents. We agreed to meet at a coffee shop in Chicago, halfway between where we both lived. I'd flown there that morning, checked into a hotel, and tried to calm my nerves. I'd canceled almost 3 times, but at 2 o'clock that afternoon, I walked into the coffee shop and saw him right away. He looked older, heavier, with a receding hairline, but his eyes were the same. He stood up when he saw me, awkward and uncertain. I didn't hug him. We just sat across from each other with our coffees, like strangers. The first 20 minutes were excruciating. Small talk about the weather, my flight, his trip. Then he started apologizing. "Emma, I'm so sorry," Michael said, his voice breaking. "I was just a kid when it happened. I didn't know they were planning on leaving you until it was too late. I was too afraid to stand up to them." I just listened, watching his face for signs of deception. He seemed sincere, but I'd been deceived before. I asked him the question that had haunted me for 12 years. Why me? Why was I the one left? He looked at his coffee. "They always thought you were the strong one, the independent one, the one who would be fine without them. They thought you didn't need them as much as I did. They convinced themselves you'd be better off without them." It was the most ridiculous thing I'd ever heard. I told him about the storage unit, about eating peanut butter for weeks, about showering at the YMCA and working nights at 17. His face twisted. "I didn't know," he whispered. "They told me you had a plan, that you wanted to stay, that you were going to live with a friend's family, that you were separating from us. All lies." By the end of our meeting, I didn't know what to think. He seemed genuinely remorseful. He showed me pictures of his wife and daughter. Told me about his job as an accountant, asked about my business, and didn't ask for money outright, which surprised me. When we parted, he hugged me. I let him, but I didn't hug him back. I just stood there, arms at my sides, feeling nothing. Back at my hotel, I called Melissa, told her everything. She noted that while my brother seemed remorseful, he still portrayed himself as a victim rather than acknowledging his role in my abandonment. She was right. He was 15, not 5. Old enough to pick up the phone, old enough to send an email, old enough to have checked in on me for 12 years. That night, my mother called. I hadn't given her my number, so Michael did. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. Her voice sounded older, huskier. She started crying when I said hello. She started talking about how proud she was of me, how she always knew I would succeed, how special I was. I let her vent, then asked her the same question I'd asked my brother. Why me? Her answer was different. We were in debt, Emma. We couldn't afford to feed 3 mouths. We knew you were smart enough to handle yourself. We thought you'd go to social services and be placed with a better family. We thought we were doing you a favor. I hung up, immediately blocked her number, threw the phone across the room, and screamed into my pillow. The next morning, I got an email from my dad. The first contact in 12 years. He didn't apologize. Instead, he wrote about how hard their life had been, about the medical bills and failed businesses, about Michael's wife needing surgery, about how they were facing eviction. Then, at the very end, he asked if I could help the family. Not one question about my life, not one acknowledgement of what they had done. I forwarded the email to Melissa with the subject line. And there it was. She called me immediately, even though it was a Sunday. We talked for an hour about boundaries, about forgiveness versus reconciliation, about the difference between helping someone and indulging them, about what I really wanted versus what I thought I should want. By Monday morning, I had made my decision. I emailed my brother, told him I was glad we'd met. That I understood he'd been through a tough time when we were younger, that I was willing to have a relationship with him and his family, but with clear boundaries, no money, no loans, no financial support of any kind, and no relationship with our parents until they took full responsibility for their actions. His response was immediate and revealing. I'm so disappointed, Emma. He wrote, our parents really need help. Families need to support each other. You're being selfish with your success. All the guilt buttons they'd installed in me as a child hit me at once. I didn't respond. Instead, I made an appointment with Melissa and booked a vacation to Bali. I needed time to process everything. 3 days later, Michael called, left a voicemail, apologized for his email, said he understood my position, said he still wanted a relationship on my terms, said he'd respect my boundaries. I listened to it twice, trying to decide if he was being sincere or just changing tactics. I decided to give it another go, but, keeping my guard up, I went to Bali anyway. Spent 2 weeks on the beach, hiking through rice paddies, and meditating. I needed the distance. When I got back, I had 6 more emails from my dad, each more desperate than the last. I didn't read past the threads. I also had a message from Michael asking if we could talk again. I agreed to a phone call. Nothing more. The call started normally. He apologized again for pressuring me. I'd been thinking a lot about what you told me. He said, I'm in therapy now, too. I believed that part. He sounded different, less defensive. We talked about his kids, my business, normal things. Then he mentioned that our parents were coming to visit him the following weekend. He asked if I'd be willing to meet them for just an hour in a public place. I felt my chest tighten. I'm not ready for this, Michael. He pressed me a little, but backed off when I stopped talking. After we hung up, I called Melissa. We had an emergency session that evening. She helped me see that I was afraid to see them. Not because I hated them, but because I still craved their approval. Still wanted them to love me. Still wanted to be good enough. It was pathetic, but it was true. I cried for an hour in her office. The next day, Michael texted again. Said our mom cried all night after he told her I wasn't meeting them. Said our dad was talking about coming to my town anyway. I felt panic. I immediately blocked Michael's number. Then I called my assistant and told her I would be working from home this week. Ordered groceries delivered. Mostly hid in my apartment like a scared child. On Wednesday, the doorman called and said there was a couple asking for me. They wouldn't give their names. I knew right away. I told him I wasn't accepting visitors. 5 minutes later, my phone rang from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. It was my dad, Emma. We drove 8 hours to see you. His angry voice said, you're being childish. We deserve a chance to explain. I deleted the message and turned off the phone. Thursday morning, I woke up to someone pounding on my door. I lay frozen in bed, my heart pounding. I checked the peephole. There they were. My parents were standing in my hallway, like they had a right to be there. Emma, please. My mother's voice came from behind the door. "We just want to talk to you." "We know you're in there," my dad added. "We love you." "We're sorry." I didn't open the door. I sat on the floor, my back against the wall, shaking. Eventually, they left. I immediately called building security. Told them not to let those people in again. The guard sounded worried, asked if I wanted the police. I said, "No, just don't let them in." Then I called Melissa. She came in on her lunch break, brought me a sandwich, and sat with me while I cried. Said I had every right to set boundaries, that I didn't owe them anything, that what they were doing was stalking, not reconciling. After she left, I got an email from Michael. He was furious. Said I'd humiliated our parents. Said they were staying in a cheap motel they couldn't afford because they were so desperate to see me. Said his wife needed surgery next month and they were hoping I could help. Said I was cruel. I didn't respond. Friday morning, I decided I needed to get out of town for a while. Booked a flight to visit my friend Rachel in Portland. She was one of the people who helped me when I was homeless. Let me stay on her couch for a week when I had nowhere else to go. I trusted her completely. I was throwing clothes into my suitcase when my phone rang. Another unknown number. I ignored it. 10 minutes later, my doorman called. Said there was a woman downstairs who seemed to be having health problems. Said she was asking for my name. Claimed she was my mother. I felt sick. Told him to call an ambulance if she needed help, but I wasn't coming down. He sounded awkward, but agreed. I finished packing and went downstairs an hour later. Scanned the lobby carefully before going in. No sign of them. I felt relieved, but also strangely guilty. The doorman gave me a strange look as I walked past. He said an ambulance had arrived, that a woman had chest pains and was being taken to Memorial Hospital. I nodded and hurried to my waiting Uber. At the airport, Michael called me again. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. My mother had a heart attack. He was crying. She was in surgery. It's your fault for stressing her out. I hung up and called Melissa instead. She answered immediately. I told her what had happened, asked if I was a terrible person. "Emma, listen to me," she said firmly. "You are not responsible for your mother's health. This sounds like another manipulative tactic. Get on your plane and take care of yourself." And that's what I did. I spent the weekend with Rachel. Told her everything. She remembered how my family abandoned me. I remembered how broken I was. She was furious on my behalf. "They don't deserve another minute of your time," she said, pouring me another glass of wine. "Not after what they did to you." It felt good to have someone so firmly on my side. On Sunday night, I got an email from my dad. My mom was in stable condition. She had a stent put in. She'd be out on Tuesday. The email ended, "She's asking about you. Don't you think you punished us enough?" I showed Rachel. She rolled her eyes so hard I thought they might get stuck. Told me it was classic guilt tripping. I knew she was right, but part of me still felt responsible. I came home on Monday to find flowers outside my apartment. The card read, "Please call us. We're staying at the Holiday Inn until Wednesday." No apology, no recognition of boundaries, just another demand. I threw the flowers down the garbage chute. Tuesday morning, I got a text from an unknown number. It was a photo of my mom in a hospital bed, pale and small. The message said she might not have much time left. "Do you really want to live with that regret?" I blocked the number, called Melissa. She suggested I take a break from social media, change my number, maybe even stay with a friend for a while. I agreed. I called my assistant and told her I'd be working remotely for 2 weeks. I packed another bag. Before I could leave, my doorman rang again. Said there was a young woman downstairs asking for me. Said she had a small child. Said she was my daughter-in-law. I felt trapped. These people wouldn't stop. I told the doorman to pick her up. Decided to face this. The woman who knocked on my door looked haggard. There were dark circles under her eyes. She was holding a sleeping baby on her shoulder. "My name is Jenny," she said quietly. Michael's wife. I came alone because I wanted to talk to you without family drama. I reluctantly let her in. Offered her some water. She took it gratefully. Jenny laid her sleeping daughter on my couch, wrapping a blanket around her. Then she sat down at my kitchen table and started talking. I only found out about you 3 years ago, she admitted. Michael told me you ran away at 17. Cut off contact with your family. I always thought it was weird, but I never pushed it. Hearing your podcast was a shock. I talked to him, and he finally admitted the truth. I just listened. I'm not sure what to believe anymore. Jenny seemed sincere. I'm horrified by what they did to you, she continued. I pushed Michael to contact you, but I had no idea they would ask you for money. I'm ashamed and angry about it. Yes, I need thyroid surgery, but we have insurance. Your parents are the ones struggling financially, not us. I asked her why she was there. She looked me straight in the eyes. You deserve to know the whole truth. She said, your parents told everyone that you abandoned the family, that you were mentally unstable, that you stole money from them before you disappeared, that they spent years looking for you. All lies to cover up what they did. I felt like I'd been punched. How do you know this is true? She pulled out her phone, showed me Facebook messages from those years. My mom asking for prayers to find her troubled daughter. My dad claiming I took their savings before I ran away. Messages about hiring private investigators, checking homeless shelters, all carefully crafted to make them look like victims. All dated years after they abandoned me. Jenny apologized for being a part of this, even if it was unwitting. She said she'd talked to my parents, too. That they'd come clean to her when she'd threatened to tell the whole family the truth. That they were desperate now, because their lives were falling apart. That my podcast had made people ask questions they couldn't answer. Then her daughter woke up. A sweet little girl with curly hair. That's Lily, Jenny said quietly. She's 3. I have another daughter on the way. I want my kids to know their aunt, but only if that's what you want, too. No pressure, no guilt. Just an open door if you ever decide to walk through it. After they left, I sat in my apartment for hours, processing everything. I called Melissa again, told her everything Jenny had said. She wasn't surprised. Abusers often control the narrative. They create alternate realities where they are the victims, she explained. She asked what I wanted to do now. I honestly didn't know. That night, I got another email from my dad. This one was different. Angry, threatening. It said that if I spread lies about them online, they would sue me for defamation. It said they had proof that I had stolen from them. It said they would take their case to the media if I didn't do a podcast and apologize publicly. It said they wanted financial compensation for the damage to their reputation. I forwarded it to Melissa, and then to my lawyer, Marcus. He rang me immediately. They were empty threats, he assured me. The truth is the absolute defense against libel. Keep everything, but don't reply. I'll look into it if they actually sue, which I doubt. People who are really going to sue usually don't announce it in advance. The next day I got a call from Michael. I let it go to voicemail. He sounded panicked. Emma, Jenny told me she's been to see you. Our parents are furious. They're saying terrible things about her now. I'm afraid they'll try something desperate. Please call me back on Jenny's phone, not mine. I didn't know what to believe anymore. I rang Marcus again. He suggested that we meet Michael and Jenny somewhere public, with him present as my lawyer, just to hear them out. I reluctantly agreed. We set up a meeting at a restaurant near Marcus's office for the next day. They showed up on time. They both looked terrible, tense, exhausted. Jenny had a bruise on her arm. She kept trying to hide it. Michael couldn't make eye contact. I'm Marcus, Emma's lawyer, he said when we sat down, making Michael wince. But we sat, ordered coffee, and they started talking. The story that came out was worse than I imagined. My parents had lived off Michael for years, moving in and out of his house, taking emergency money, babysitting his children, all the while criticizing his parenting. When Jenny confronted them about me, my father grabbed her arm hard enough to leave marks. Michael kicked them out. Now they live in a motel, calling constantly, showing up at his work. I listened without interrupting, watched my brother break down as he described how our parents had controlled him his entire life. How they convinced him I'd abandoned them. How he'd been too afraid to question their version of events, how he'd been caught in their web of manipulation and lies for 12 years, how he'd been afraid they'd hurt Jenny or the kids. Marcus had asked careful questions about financial relationships, about property titles and bank accounts, about whether my parents had keys to their house. Michael had answered them all. Said they'd co-signed his mortgage. Said his dad was still in his bank account from when he was in college. Said they had spare keys. Said they knew all his passwords. Marcus took notes, occasionally glancing at me. By the end of the meeting, I felt devastated, but clearer. This wasn't just about me anymore. Michael and Jenny were victims, too, in their own way. Different from me, but still trapped. Marcus suggested they talk to their own lawyer. Gave them a colleague's business card, told them to change their locks, passwords, and bank accounts immediately. They nodded, looking devastated but grateful. As we left, Michael hugged me. This time, I hugged him back. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was something. An acknowledgement that we'd both been damaged by the same people. That maybe we could help each other heal. That night, I received a series of increasingly erratic text messages from my parents' numbers. Accusations, threats, guilt. I blocked them all. Then I called Jenny. Asked if they were safe. She said yes. They'd changed the locks. Had stayed with friends the night before. We're looking into a restraining order. I was relieved, but still worried. The next morning, I woke up to the phone ringing. It was Jenny, hysterical. They'd broken into our house. She was sobbing. They'd taken Lily's baby pictures, important documents, Michael's laptop. They'd left a note. Family business should stay within the family. I told her to call the police immediately. Told her I'd meet them at their house. Called Marcus on the way. When I arrived, there was a police car outside their house. An officer was taking a statement in the living room. The room was in disarray. Drawers were pulled out, papers were scattered. Michael was sitting on the couch with his head in his hands. Jenny was pointing out missing items to the officer. I introduced myself as a family member who had come to help. The officer seemed skeptical that the grandparents could have broken into the house. Are you sure they just didn't use the key? He asked. Maybe it's a misunderstanding. Jenny showed him the bruise on her arm, told him about the escalating behavior, the threats, the stalking. He took notes, but didn't seem convinced. He said it would be hard to prove who did it without evidence. After the police left, we cleaned up together. We found more missing items, photo albums, financial documents, a spare key to their car. Michael looked devastated. This was my fault. He said, I should have protected my family better. I should have stood up to them years ago. I should have looked harder for you. I didn't argue, but I didn't want to add fuel to the fire either. We were already at it. Marcus arrived as we were finishing up. He looked around grimly. He said that changed the situation. That we needed to document everything. That trespassing was a serious crime. That we should all stay somewhere else for a few days. That he would help us apply for emergency restraining orders in the morning. We nodded, too exhausted to argue. Jenny packed their bags while Michael and I secured the house as best we could, changing the locks again, checking the windows, discussing the security cameras. It seemed unrealistic to take these precautions against our own parents, but it had to be done. They had crossed a line that couldn't be crossed. As we were leaving, Michael received a text from our father. Just 3 words. We're watching you. He showed it to me, his hands shaking. I took a screenshot, sent it to Marcus. Then I made the decision, told them they were coming to stay with me. My house had security, cameras, a doorman who already knew he shouldn't let our parents in. They agreed, gratefully. That night, the 4 of us ate takeout in my living room. Lily played with the toys Jenny had packed. We talked quietly about next steps, about restraining orders, about police reports, about changing phone numbers and email addresses, about possibly moving to a new house, about how to protect ourselves in the long term. It wasn't the kind of family reunion I'd ever imagined. Sitting there with the brother who'd let me get abandoned, his wife who'd believed the lies about me, and their daughter who'd been innocent in all of this. But somehow it felt right, like we were finally facing the truth together. Like maybe, just maybe, we could build something new from the ashes of what our parents had destroyed. The next morning, Marcus called, said he had filed for emergency restraining orders on all of us. Said we needed to show up in court the following week to make them permanent. Said he had also reported the break-in to a detective he knew who had taken it more seriously than the officers who had responded. Said we all needed to stay together until this was resolved. I agreed. Called my assistant, told her I would be working from home indefinitely. Family emergency. She understood, rearranged my schedule. I set up a workspace in my guest room for Michael, who also needed to work remotely. Jenny and Lily took over my living room, building pillow forts and watching cartoons. It felt weird to have people in my space. I'd lived alone for years. I loved my quiet routines, my clean tables, my empty sink. But there was something comforting about the noise, too. About Lily's laughter, about Jenny's soft croon as she folded laundry, about Michael's typing from the other room. It felt like family. Not the family that had abandoned me, but maybe the family we could be. That day, our doorman called to say there was a delivery, flowers. I told him to check the card before picking them up. He read it to me. We know where you all are. This isn't over. I told him to refuse the delivery. To call the police if the delivery guy didn't take them back. Then I called Marcus again. He said he'd add it to our file, that it strengthened our request for restraining orders, that we were doing the right thing. I didn't tell Michael and Jenny about the flowers. They were stressed enough as it was. Instead, I ordered extra groceries, made dinner for everyone, played with Lily, tried to create some normalcy in this strange situation. But that night, after everyone was asleep, I sat alone in the kitchen and finally allowed myself to feel everything. The fear, the anger, the grief, the strange hope. I cried silently into a tea towel so no one would hear me. In the morning, Jenny caught me making coffee, asked if I was okay. I lied. I said yes, she didn't believe me. I sat down at the counter. It's okay not to be okay, Emma, she said softly. Me too. Michael was crying in the shower, where he thought no one would hear. Lily kept asking when we could go home. This whole situation is awful, but I'm grateful we're in it together. I looked at her, this woman I barely knew who was now somehow a part of my life. I asked her why she'd come to me that first day, why she'd chosen to trust me instead of the family she'd known for years. She smiled sadly. I always felt like there was something wrong with your parents, with the stories they told, with the way they controlled Michael. The podcast confirmed my suspicions. I couldn't let my daughters grow up thinking that abandoning a child was ever acceptable. We hugged for the first time. It felt awkward but genuine, like the beginning of something. Not friendship, of course, but understanding, solidarity, a shared determination to break the cycle of abuse that had damaged us all. The next few days settled into a routine. Working, cooking, playing with Lily, checking on Marcus, jumping at unexpected noises, jerking when phones rang, living in a strange limbo of domestic normalcy and hidden tension. We were safe but not at peace, together but still healing, a family but still learning what that meant. On Friday, Marcus called with news. The detective had found evidence. Security footage from the gas station next to Michael's house showed our parents' car parked there during the robbery. The restraining order hearing was scheduled for Monday. He was confident it would be approved. We were all relieved, but still anxious. Still waiting for the next escalation. It happened that night. A brick through Michael's car window in the parking lot. No note this time. No need. The message was clear. The building's security footage showed a man in a baseball cap. His face carefully turned away from the cameras. We couldn't prove it was our father, but we knew. We filed another police report. Added it to our file. Tried not to show Lily how scared we were. We sat together Sunday night, making a plan for court. What to wear, what to say, what evidence to present, how to explain our family history without going crazy. How to get a judge to understand the escalation pattern, how to protect yourself legally and physically. It felt surreal, discussing our parents like this, as if we were talking about strangers, dangerous strangers, who just so happened to share our DNA. As we spoke, my phone beeped, a notification of an email from my mother. Subject: Last chance. I almost deleted it unread, but something made me open it. It was short, one line. If you go to court tomorrow, you will regret it for the rest of your life. I showed it to Marcus, who was staying for dinner. He took a screenshot, added it to our file, told me not to respond. Said that kind of threat would only help our case. Neither of us slept well that night. I kept checking the locks, listening to noises, wondering what else my parents might do. Wondering if we were exaggerating, wondering if we were underestimating, wondering how my life had gotten to this point. From abandoned at 17 to a successful businesswoman hiding in her own apartment from the people who gave me life. Monday morning arrived with a strange calm. We dressed carefully, business casual, respectable, trustworthy. Jenny arranged for a friend to watch Lily. We drove to court in separate cars, just in case. We met Marcus at the entrance. He looked confident, briefcase in hand, said he had handled dozens of cases like this, that the evidence was strong, that judges took threats seriously, that they would protect us. As we walked into the courthouse, I saw them. My parents were standing at the entrance, looking older than I remembered, smaller somehow. My mother saw me first, made a move toward me. My father grabbed her arm, held her back. They watched us go by, didn't speak, didn't try to approach, just looked at us with a mixture of anger and something else, something that might have been fear. We walked past them into the building, checked into security, followed Marcus into the right courtroom, sat together on a bench, waiting for our case to be called. I felt my parents coming in behind us. I felt them sitting on the opposite side of the room, could almost hear them whispering, but I didn't turn around, kept my eyes forward, focused on my breathing. The judge called our case. We stood, walked over, took our seats. Marcus calmly presented our evidence. The robbery, the threatening messages, the flowers, the brick, the letter, the story of abandonment and manipulation. The judge listened attentively, asked follow-up questions, looked at our parents with growing concern. When it was their turn, my parents approached the bench. No lawyer, just them. My father spoke first, insisting that we were exaggerating, that they were simply trying to reconnect with family, that they had never broken any laws, that they loved us and wanted to make amends, that this was all a misunderstanding blown out of proportion. The judge asked about the surveillance footage, about the threatening messages. My father denied everything, said it wasn't them on the tape, that their messages were being misinterpreted, said they were the victims here, not us. My mother nodded, occasionally wiping her eyes with a napkin. Then the judge asked them point blank about abandoning me at 17. My father hesitated, started talking about troubled teenagers, about tough decisions, about doing what they thought was best. The judge interrupted, asked him point blank again, "You abandoned your minor child and moved to another state?" My father hung his head, muttered something about financial hardship. The judge's expression hardened. After hearing both sides, the judge gave us restraining orders. 3 years, no contact, no approaching our homes or places of work, no third-party communications. Any violation would result in immediate arrest. My parents looked stunned, like they couldn't believe this was happening, like they'd never faced consequences before. As we left the courtroom, my mother called my name, once. Quietly, I kept walking. Didn't look back. Felt the weight lifting with each step. Not healing, not yet, but the beginning of it. The first real line that couldn't be crossed without serious consequences. Outside, Marcus shook our hands. Said we'd done well. Said the orders were solid. Said we were to call him immediately if there were any violations. He said he was proud of us for standing up for ourselves. We thanked him, feeling stunned but relieved, like survivors of a natural disaster. Blinking in the sun, Michael hugged me at the courthouse steps. A real hug this time. "I'm sorry, Emma," he said, his voice catching. "For everything, for not protecting you then, for not finding you sooner, for believing their lies, for bringing this chaos back into your life." I hugged him back, told him we were going to be okay, that we were together now, that we could build something new, something better. As we walked to our cars, I felt my phone vibrate, a text from an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but when I looked, I shuddered. It was a picture of Lily at a friend's house, playing in the backyard, unaware that she was being watched. Below it were just 4 words. It wasn't over. I showed Michael the message immediately. His face went white. He called Jenny, who was already on her way to pick up Lily. I told them to meet us at my apartment. Then I called Marcus from the car. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. He told me to forward the message to him and to drive straight home. He said he'd call the police and meet us there. He said this was a clear violation of the restraining order. He told us to stay calm but be vigilant. The drive back seemed like an eternity. I kept checking my mirrors, paranoid that my parents were watching me. When I finally pulled into the garage of my building, I sat in the car for a minute, just breathing, trying to gather my strength before meeting Michael and Jenny. They needed me to be strong right now. I found them already in my apartment. Jenny was clutching Lily as if she might disappear. The poor girl looked confused and scared. Michael was pacing back and forth, running his hands through his hair over and over. I showed them the text. Jenny started crying, said they were watching her baby, said she would never forgive herself if anything happened to Lily. Michael hugged them both, looking more determined than I had ever seen him. Marcus arrived 20 minutes later with 2 police officers. They took our statements, looked at the text message, made some calls, said they were sending a patrol car to a friend's house to check it out. Said they'd try to get a number. Said they'd increase patrols around my building, all good. But I felt like they didn't fully understand how dangerous my parents could be, how unpredictable they were, how desperate they were. After the police left, we sat in my living room trying to figure out what to do next. Jenny suggested we go to a hotel under different names. Michael thought we should go to his cousin's house a few states away. I just sat there, getting angrier by the minute. It was absurd. We had done everything right. We followed all the legal procedures, got restraining orders, and they were still terrorizing us, still controlling our lives through fear. I stood up suddenly. I'm done running, I said. I'm done hiding, done letting them dictate how I live my life. They'd already stolen my childhood. I'm not giving them my adult life either. Michael looked at me like I was crazy. What are you going to do? I honestly didn't know yet, but I knew we couldn't keep living like this. That night, we took turns keeping watch while the others slept. I took the first shift, sitting by the living room window with all the lights off, watching the street below. Around 2 a.m., I spotted a car I recognized, my dad's old Buick. She circled the block 3 times before parking across the street. I snapped a picture of her with my phone, then woke Michael up. Together we watched our father sit in his car, just looking at my house, not getting any closer, not violating the restraining order, technically just letting us know he was there, watching, waiting. In the morning, I texted Marcus the pictures. He said it was disturbing, but not technically a violation, since my father had stayed in his car, away from the building. Told me to keep documenting everything. Told him he'd spoken to the detective again. I hung up, feeling frustrated. The legal system had limits. Restraining orders were just pieces of paper. They couldn't stop someone determined to hurt you. Jenny and Michael decided to take Lily to a hotel for a few days, somewhere with interior corridors and good security. I helped them pack, hugged them goodbye, promised to check in every few hours. After they left, I sat in my empty apartment, feeling strangely calm, like I'd reached some breaking point, like I couldn't continue living in this limbo. I called Melissa, told her everything, asked her what she thought I should do. She was silent for a minute. Then she asked me a question that really struck me. What do you really want from your parents? Not what I didn't want, not what I was afraid of, but what I actively wanted. I realized I'd never really thought about it that way. After we hung up, I made a list. What I wanted: 1. To live without fear. 2. To have a relationship with my brother and his family. 3. To stop feeling responsible for my parents' actions. 4. To be free of the past. Nowhere on that list was there reconciliation with my parents. Nowhere was there forgiveness. Nowhere was there an understanding of why they did what they did. I just wanted to be free of them. That afternoon, I did something crazy. I wrote my parents an email. Just a quick message. I know you're watching my building. I know you won't stop. So let's talk one last time. Tomorrow, at noon. The coffee shop on 8th Street. Just me. No police, no lawyers. After this, you're going to leave us all alone forever. I sent the text before I could change my mind. I didn't tell Michael or Jenny. I didn't tell Marcus or Melissa. This was something I needed to do, for myself. I wasn't naive enough to think my parents would suddenly become reasonable people, but I needed to meet them on my terms. I needed to speak up. I needed to end this cycle once and for all. My father responded within minutes, simply "We'll be there." No threats, no remorse, just affirmation. I spent the rest of the day preparing, not physically, but mentally, thinking about what I wanted to say, what I needed them to hear, what boundaries I needed to set. I slept surprisingly well that night, as if the decision had lifted a weight off me. The next morning I dressed carefully, not to impress them but simply to feel strong, confident. I took an Uber to the coffee shop, arriving 15 minutes before the appointed time. I chose a table in the far corner, where I could see the door but not be immediately visible from the outside. I ordered coffee, which I didn't really want. I just sat there and waited, surprisingly calm. They arrived promptly at 12 o'clock. They looked older than they had in court, more tired. My mother noticed me first, nudged my father. They walked slowly, as if approaching a wild animal that might bolt, and sat down across from me, saying nothing. We just looked at each other for a long moment. These strangers who were my parents, these people who shaped me in ways they would never understand. I spoke first. I didn't call this meeting to reconcile or give you money or listen to excuses. I called it so you could understand one thing. It's over. You've lost. Not just the lawsuit. You've lost me, you've lost Michael, you've lost your grandchildren, you've lost any chance you had of being a part of our lives. And if you can't live with that, if you keep stalking us, threatening us, trying to force your way back in, I will destroy you. My father started to interrupt. I raised my hand. I wasn't done. Then I pulled out my phone, showed them screenshots of all their threatening messages, Lily's picture, the emails. I've CC'd everyone in your life, your siblings, your church, your neighbors, your employers, everyone. Not yet, but I will if you contact any of us again. If you come anywhere near our homes, if you even mention our names to anyone we know. My mom started crying. We just want our family back. We've made mistakes, but we deserve another chance. We're getting old and we don't want to die alone. I looked at her for a long time. You should have thought of that before you abandoned your 17-year-old daughter. Before you lied to everyone about what you did, before you broke into Michael's house, before you threatened your own grandson. My dad got mad then. You're ungrateful. You've always been difficult. You turned your brother on us. You owe us for raising you. I just laughed. I really laughed in his face. Do you really think you deserve gratitude for doing the bare minimum as parents for 17 years before completely abandoning me? Do you think your parenting was so amazing that I should thank you for it? He didn't have an answer to that. He just sat there, red-faced and silent. My mom was still crying, but I felt nothing. No guilt, no sympathy, just the cold clarity that these people would never change, would never take responsibility, would never be the parents I deserved. I stood up to leave. This is your final warning. The next time you break a restraining order, I won't just call the police. I will make sure everyone you know understands what kind of people you really are. I have the resources to make your life very difficult if you force me to act. I don't want to do this, but I will do it to protect my family. My real family, Michael, Jenny, Lily, the people I choose. As I walked away, my mother shouted after me. Do you really hate us that much? I stopped, turned around. I don't hate you. I don't feel anything for you. You're strangers to me now, and this is your loss. Not mine. I walked out of that coffee shop feeling lighter than I had in years. I called Michael from the sidewalk, told him everything. At first he was upset that I'd met them alone, then he was worried that they might retaliate, but mostly he seemed relieved that someone had finally stood up to them head-on. Said he wished he'd had the courage to do this years ago. I went back to my apartment, packed a bag, decided to join Michael and his family at their hotel for a few days, just to be safe. When I got there, Lily rushed over to hug me. Aunt Emma, the first time she'd called me that. I almost cried. Jenny hugged me too. Told me she was proud of me. She said she hoped I could finally find peace. Michael simply squeezed my shoulder. Words weren't necessary. We spent the next few days in a strange limbo, waiting for my parents' next move, constantly checking our phones, jumpy at unexpected noises, but nothing happened. No calls, no texts, no emails, no sign of their car, just silence. A week later, Michael and Jenny decided to move back in, changed all the locks again, installed security cameras, started planning to sell their house, started looking for places closer to my city. I moved back into my apartment, too. Back to work, back to something resembling a normal life. 2 weeks passed, then a month. Nothing from my parents. Marcus checked in regularly. Said the detective had confirmed they were back in their home state. Said the restraining orders were still in effect. Said we needed to stay vigilant but try to move forward with our lives. Slowly, we did. Michael got a new job in my town. Jenny enrolled Lily in daycare. They bought a house 20 minutes from my apartment. We had dinner together every Sunday. Started creating new traditions, new memories. A new kind of family, based on choice, not obligation. I kept waiting to feel something about my parents. Grief, maybe, or guilt, or anger. But mostly, I felt relief, like I'd finally put aside a heavy burden I'd been carrying since I was 17. It was as if I could finally focus on the future instead of the past. 6 months after the confrontation in the coffee shop, I received a letter, forwarded through Marcus so that my address would remain hidden from my mother. I almost opened it, almost threw it away unread. But curiosity got the better of me. It was short, just a few paragraphs. No excuses this time, no demands, just an acknowledgement that they had hurt me deeply, that they had failed as parents, that they understood why I wanted nothing to do with them, that they were in therapy, that they would respect the restraining orders, that they hoped that someday I would be ready to hear a proper apology but understood if that day never came. I showed it to Michael. He got a similar letter. We talked about it over dinner that night, about whether it was sincere, about whether it made a difference, about whether we could ever trust them again. We didn't come to any conclusions, just agreed to live one day at a time, prioritizing our healing, protecting the family we were building. I keep the letter in my desk drawer, not because I'm ready to forgive, not because I want reconciliation, but because it represents something important. My parents have finally acknowledged my right to set boundaries, my right to choose who I allow into my life, my right to define family on my own terms. Last week was Lily's birthday party, her 4th birthday. Michael and Jenny invited me to help organize it. We held it at my apartment. Balloons everywhere. A cake I'd ordered from an expensive bakery. Presents piled on the coffee table. Lily running around in a princess dress, laughing. Jenny taking pictures. Michael grilling on my balcony. Friends stopping by throughout the day. So much noise. So much joy. At one point, I went into the kitchen for a moment, just watching from the doorway as Michael twirled Lily around and Jenny laughed at something a friend said. When my apartment, once so empty and quiet, filled with life and love. I thought about that note on my kitchen counter 12 years ago. You'll understand. And I did, not in the way they meant, but I did understand what family was supposed to be. What love was supposed to look like, what I deserved all along. I'm not saying everything is perfect now. I still have trust issues. I still see a therapist every week. I still have nightmares about being abandoned. I still jump when the doorbell rings unexpectedly. But I'm healing. We all build something new from the broken pieces of our past. Something stronger, something chosen, something real. Sometimes people ask if I'll ever get over my parents, if I'll ever let them meet Lily, if I'll ever forgive them for what they did. I don't have the answers to those questions yet. Maybe someday, maybe never. But I do know this. I'm no longer defined by what they did to me. I'm defined by what I built next, the person I chose to be, the family I chose to have.